I'm Gentleman Josh Hill.
I'm Aaron Jeffrey.
I'm Johnson Jazz Fiziev.
I'm Mike Malott.
I'm Rafian Stock.
Tune in to
Donttap.
Donttap podcast.
Donttap
podcast.
John Jones.
Follow me on Twitter.
Hey, I'm UFC President Dana White, and you're in the ring with Callum McGregor.
To me, the Lions are the number one rankings out there. Those guys are the ones who really do their homework.
Man, that's why I'm saying the rankings are bullshit.
From Canada.
Got a really high fight IQ.
But this fight, I'm telling you, it's a flip of a coin.
Levels to the shit.
So many high-level guys.
So, like, the line is crazy.
Oh, there we go. Oh, no, we're good. See, he's a pro.
I would not parlay Padilla at minus 250. Fuck no. You'd have to kill me before I do that.
He's like one fight that he's had, Julian Erosa. I mean, and like I said before, a guy who plays this game, and it's like, I don't know, man. Like, that's not proven enough, right? And he's a killer. And Kyle Nelson has sort of taken some kickboxers and whatever you want to say about the performance and whether you hate how it looks or whatever, he nullifies power, and he's able to keep range. He took some damage, 100%, but I thought he was going to get a close fight, and then he's a dog at almost plus 210. I don't know. That's just a good gamble. That's not
on a Viva Las Mexico card in fucking Vegas, and Kyle Nelson pulling out the W. I think that's how you know he really won, because they couldn't rob it to go the other way.
Padilla won the first round. I think Padilla won the first round. That's where the damage was, where his cheek got split open, where he was bleeding, so it was visible. And even if, like, Kyle did land some good shots there, and I think one thing that he got credited for too was the leg damage too, kicking away at that leg. But he was working the body. If you go back, I watched it twice, and I tried to take all my bias out. I went piece for piece. Looked at Padilla, how he was sort of rushing forward at times and not really landing. He landed like 104. So his high volume, he was higher volume than Nelson, but he was landing roughly around the same rate. So Nelson was sort of nullifying it, and that just doesn't look good at the judge. There's so many things to it, but it's like,
I call it a cliff fight. When a fighter starts off at the end of the first round and they're up here, and you see their momentum, and their momentum ends up being their detriment in the long run, because it felt like in the second and third round, he wasn't respecting Kyle Nelson in the second round. And that's what made him himself get damaged up, because he was like, all right, this guy isn't really throwing that hard amount of shots. I've seen these shots in the gym a million times, but have you seen the grit and toughness when the coach doesn't say stop at the end of the round? Like, Kyle Nelson wanted to be there more than Padilla wanted to be there, and it definitely showed in the second and third round, because if you say athleticism and all that, he was definitely outmatched.
Yeah, I mean, but Padilla, he looked good. It was a matter of, I just think he just got nullified. And I think Kyle did play a little bit of a safer game and a more defensive game. But I mean, rightfully so. You got an unproven kid coming up with who's a killer, 100%. The kid's got hands. But it's like, you're not going to play his game. So it's like, I'm going to play to win, and then I'm going to call my shot. I think he wants Cub Swanson next. So, but I knew that was going to be something we'd sort of hash into a little bit, because everybody's going to be waiting to hear what I have to say about that. But I think it was a great win for Canada, a great win for Kyle. But it's more like, it was just a good fucking bet, in my opinion.
I think
too wide. That was it.
Indicator, though. I think this summer, I think we could summarize it for the summer, because, I'm not a big Canadian, but Canadian MMA is going in the right direction after years and years of doubts and saying maybe Charles Jourdain is the best Canadian. Like, after a while now, we're at a good point in Canadian MMA where there's actual people that I think could make some runs in these divisions. Not GS.
Well, I mean, look at Lupe Godinez. I know that she's, Mexican Canadian or Canadian Mexican. I don't know how you would say it back and forth, but two of her sisters are on the Canadian national team. She has lived here. I think she was in her teens, I'm pretty sure. I'm not 100%. So it's like, she's Canadian as Canadian can be, as far as, we're claiming her anyways, for fuck's sakes. But just there's a team of people right now that are coming up. Obviously, Malott's likely going to have a fight probably announced pretty soon. I know some that he is interested in, or really, there's some names out there right now, but I like a matchup with Ponzinibbio. I think that would be a sweet matchup for a potential card coming up in January.
Yeah, that would be a banger. I would definitely like to see get a proper matchup, so we can really start thinking about his next move in the division, because he's a legit contender.
Okay, now let's actually jump into the next card. We're going to go to the UFC Fight Night. We got Fiziev against Gamrot. I tried to stay off the main card as one of my plays today, but I will be jumping in with that one. Maybe we'll hit that one right off the top. I was going to start with my dog of the week, but I think let's just get into the main event. I'm going to let you run your. Do you have a play on that one, or do you have a say on that one? What's the deal? If you don't have a play on that one, I'll lead, and then you can just sort of jump in.
I'm interested to hear your thoughts because it's a pulling of the teeth for me, because when I say pulling of the teeth, I mean more of the aspect of this is what you would call your typical striker versus grappler matchup. Usually, more times than not, the grappler is going to be plus monies, and that's the scenario that we're getting this week with Gamrot and Fiziev. While I think Fiziev is a very good technical striker, and he didn't show up against Justin Gaethje at the end of the fight, but he gave a good account of himself. That was a little bit of a upper class echelon of the division. It's really hard to say that Matthias Gamrot's going to struggle in these striking exchanges. I mean, when he fought Jalen Turner, I thought he was going to struggle in those striking exchanges, probably one of the longest reaches in the division, and Gamrot gave a good account of himself. He kept on. Gamrot doesn't change his game plan for nobody. He's fought the top level overseas, came over here to America, and has, if anything, polished up his game. I think he's a live dog in this one. I'm going to be looking at the spread bets for this one, but I got to, as my man MMA Locker Room would say, sticker your guy, sticker your gut. My gut tells me that Matthias Gamrot's better than Rafael Fiziev, the sport of MMA.
I think you brought up a good point about Gamrot's striking, and where he actually sort of surprises you. And I think there's two things to that. It's his southpaw stance and how he's able to switch stances, and then also threaten with the takedowns, right? So when you're a striker and you have a guy who's always constantly threatening those takedowns, he's high volume with the takedown shots. He's landing roughly, what is it? We're 4.54 takedowns per fight that he's landing, right? So for him, if that's always a threat, that's going to sort of throw you off. But then we have a guy on the other side with a 90% takedown defense in Fiziev. So it's really going to be, I think the striking may look decent, like sort of level at a point, but as soon as Fiziev starts to stuff some of those takedowns, I think it's going to make it easier for him, and he's going to start picking Gamrot apart. If you look at Gamrot's stats, I think in how many of his fights he's been knocked down in, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times in his UFC career, right? So once a fight, he gets knocked down, and it just doesn't look good to the judges. So, I mean, that's already something that I was looking at. I think that if anybody can even maybe finish him as well, too, would be Fiziev with the striking. I think it's just if it stays on the feet, he hasn't faced a guy at this high level of a striker. Although Fiziev's numbers now, he's about 5-5 on his strikes for landed and absorbed per minute. That's a lot to do with Justin Gaethje. So, I mean, barring that fight, if you put that one aside, I just think that this is going to be, Jalen Turner's great. Still didn't use his range as well against Gamrot, and I think that that's where he sort of faltered on that one. I think that that's not going to be a problem for Fiziev. I like him in this one. I like him money line. But I totally see the high level of grappling, taking that side as the dog. But I don't know, man. I just think he's going to get picked apart. I think a lot of this will be played out on the feet. I think that although there'll be a little bit of time in on the cage and he might get taken down a couple of times, then he gets back to his feet. And when he lands, he's going to win big moments and have higher volume.
Well, the question really relies back to who do you think has a better chance of finishing their opponent in the main event? And first glance, you would think Rafael Fiziev because all of his striking highlights and stuff like that. But when I watch his striking in the film and the leg kicks and high shots and all that, that shit just looks like it's about to get set up for an easy takedown. We're not in the big cage. I think Fiziev favors the bigger cage, fans in the arena. Those are the firefights that he gets. You get Matthias Gamrot, a wrestler in the Apex small-ass cage. There's going to be no fans there, so nobody's going to be booing him if he wrestle fucks him for 5 rounds. And I think he has a better chance of finishing Fiziev throughout the 5 rounds because he has the submission upside. I don't, as many times as Gamrot's been knocked down, I don't got Rafael Fiziev knocking him out. If Rafael Fiziev wins this fight, it's by decision. But if there is a finish in this fight, I think it's from the Gamrot side. I think I could see Rafael Fiziev throw in a kick that gets him taken down and submitted. He's been submitted before, and I could definitely see him being submitted again here.
Okay, so if we look, the one thing that for me was just the durability. If you look at him being dropped so many times, and then you just have there's a huge differential in the striking. But if we look at when was he submitted?
Big difference in the cardio. Gamrot's fought 5 rounds.
Yeah. So he's never been submitted, right? So he's been KO'd by Mustafayev, and he lost in a decision to Justin Gaethje. So if you look at his record at the level, and we're talking about UFC level. So maybe actually I don't have the regional stats in front of me. Maybe he was submitted on the regional scene. If you have that up, do you want to bring that up right now?
Yeah, it was more earlier in his career, but I think it's more of like a cardio thing, because if you look at the cardio between these two fighters, Rafael Fiziev, granted, he looked good against Rafael dos Anjos, but he started trending down as that fight went along. He ended up getting the 5th round finish and stuff like that, but that wasn't the best 25-minute performance. And then followed up by Justin Gaethje. He lost that fight because of the cardio aspect of it. He was winning the fight in the beginning, but once the shit got hard and tough, he kind of didn't look the same. Rafael Fiziev throwing all these pretty strikes that were landing and stuff like that. If you look at Gamrot, Gamrot's a fucking dog. He will dog fights. He does not care what the performance looks like as long as the W is next to the win column at the end of the day. I mean, he was a dog. He was a dog against Arman Chizurikian. Nobody thought he was going to win that fight. Gave a great account of himself. Everybody was trying to fade him against Jeremy Stephens. Got fucking submitted in 0.5 seconds. Set him right out the UFC. Scotty Holtzman, a dude that has one of the best durabilities in the UFC, got absolutely, completely smoked by Gamrot. There's just a lot of different ways I see. I don't know, man. I think people are sleeping on Gamrot, man. Everybody was sleeping.
Now you're gonna look like a absolute wizard if he gets submitted by Gamrot with this clip, but it's just for me. Jeremy Stephens is the equivalent to like a bodybuilder on his back or a turtle on his back. So him getting submitted isn't really that crazy, but Gamrot's ability to get guys down is definitely there. And only time will tell in this one once he shoots, right? It's just for me, when I look at avenues, we got 90% takedown defense. So first, you already have a guy who doesn't give you openings with his footwork. So it's hard to get a good opening on him. If anybody can get there, it's Gamrot 100%. He'll get even a dirty opening and get him down 100%. But it's like there's just so many walls to get to that submission. I don't know if I see that as a finish. I could see him getting some control time for a little bit, for sure, if he could get him down. But then on the feet, I don't know, man. We'll see. We shall see. He has proven us wrong at certain points, but I just think that I think he could get dropped multiple times in this fight. Maybe stay durable enough to stay to the end. But I could see definitely a decision or a late finish. But we'll go on either side of it all day long. The line currently, 1 second, is sitting minus 150 for Fiziev, Gamrot. And then I'm looking at Caesars right now at plus 125. I think you can get better line at probably plus 145 or something for Gamrot.
I think the problem with Rafael Fiziev is you're backing him at chalk with a lot of assumptions, because it's like, granted, he has 90% takedown defense, but look at the motherfuckers that he's not fighting pure grapplers like at all. Like, this is Mark Diakese before Mark Diakese went D1 to Casey. Mercado has a good submission game, but he isn't a pure grappler like wrestler. Bobby Green is not a wrestler, but he has a good submission game. Brad Riddell's a kickboxer. Rafael dos Anjos can mix it up, but he's more of a kickboxer in my opinion. He's not a pure grappler. And Justin Gaethje's a striker. So this is the first time that we're really going to see somebody that's going to put their head down, ramsack him to the fucking cage, and not quit after the first, second, third, seventh, or eighth takedown attempt. Gamrot gives me a lot of similarities to Merab Davashvili, just at a different weight class. Just that motor, man. Like, he can fucking go. And he can go for 25 minutes or 5 rounds. He's looked good in those. Fiziev has not looked good in the big spots. I don't know, man. From a UFC, who are we trying to promote perspective, it's definitely Rafael Fiziev. But from like a X's and O's basic breakdown of MMA and like betting, dog or pass here in the main event.
Got it. We will split hairs all day long because I think it is a closely contested match. It's going to be probably a great fight to watch. We will move on to the next spot. Now, was that actually a spot for you, or did you want to bring a spot to the table?
That was actually my second spot. But we'll talk about the first spot here as we disagree. I hope we agree on this one. This one's pretty set. So forward, favorite of the card, I should say, or the spot that I'm looking to parlay up this week. Marina Rodriguez versus Michelle Waterson Gomez. Did not understand the matchmaking of this fight. We've seen this fight 2 years ago. It's not like we saw this fight 5 or 6, 7 years ago. We don't really know what's going to happen or the outcome is still to be determined. No, Marina Rodriguez smoked this bitch the first time that they fought. And I think she smokes her again. And I think that she could probably finish her. This is just a fight for Marina Rodriguez to stay active and to keep the fans in the back of their mind that Marina Rodriguez is still a upper echelon gatekeeper in this division, I should say. Because I don't think she's going to sniff the title, but I mean, she's right that level right below. And Michelle Waterson's right at that level that's getting sent out to UFC, soccer mom practice, need to go be a wife to my kids. Not the case for Marina Rodriguez here. I think she smokes her 30-27 UNAM, and minus 350 is a damn good of a price tag compared to the other fights on this card this weekend.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I initially looked to see if there was any value in how wide that line was, but I know that they've fought before, and I wanted to see if Waterson had multiple takedowns in any of her fights, and she hasn't. She's only had about one takedown when she's went to this whole wrestling approach. On the feet, it's just Marina Rodriguez is just going to be able to pick her apart at range. It's just that's what it is. It's high volume. She's really fun to watch. Now Waterson also is a great more karate style, kicking style. Kickboxer, with her approach, but on the feet, she's just probably going to get outpointed to a decision I could see Rodriguez potentially finish her, but that all depends on, how close to retirement she is. But yeah, for me, I was trying to find a way to Waterson. The only thing I will say is I did not find a way to that line. There's absolutely no way that dog had any value as far as the fight's already happened. What's really going to change at this stage in the game? It's not like we have a 24-year-old prospect or a 22-year-old prospect that's going to go away for a little while or come back from learning in camps upon camps and get better at wrestling. It's going to be very difficult for me to see her get 3 takedowns in a fight, because I think if she gets 3 takedowns on Rodriguez, that's how she wins. And I don't see that happening. So I think even if she takes her down twice, she's just going to get pieced up on the feet predominantly. And really the 3-round fight isn't going to actually help her, because in the last time they fought, it was a 5-round fight. Waterson poured on late in the fight and actually won, I think, the last 2 rounds. Rodriguez, on the other hand, was up on the cards in the first three rounds. So that's not going to really favor her as well, too. Everything's pointing towards, the chalk heavy Rodriguez. So yeah, as a parlay, like a couple 2 pieces out there.
Yeah, I'm looking to parlay her even with some NFL lines on Sunday. There's a couple of NFL lines that I like, and I'm using her straight as a parlay piece.
Oh, there you go. So if he's doing that, we're doing cross sport parlays, then the man is confident for sure.
Yeah, no, I was looking at this from there isn't a lot of big favorites that I feel strongly on. So this is one that I was looking to get to the betting window with, because the Jacob Malkoun Cody Brundage fight, since we didn't get to talk about the Gamrot fight as the second fight, let's talk about a little bit of Jacob Malkoun Cody Brundage. That fight.
Well, I'm going to bring one thing. I'm going to bring the. Actually, you know what? We'll save the dog for last. So I'll talk about my dog for last, because actually Malkoun is, and Brundage will be one of my plays as well too, my third place. So you start it off, and I will jump on in.
Yeah, no, that fight just feels a little bit greasy. Granted, I think Jacob Malkoun, when you talk about 2 grapplers fighting each other, it's usually the striking. So the striking could come into play, because Cody Brundage does throw bombs, and he throws bombs early in fights, and anybody can get knocked, especially in this division. So it feels weird laying minus 600 with Jacob Malkoun, given the fact that this fight could play out a bit closer than what we apparently wanted to, 29-28 or something like that. But I just don't feel as strongly that Jacob Malkoun should be a minus 600 favorite over anybody in this division. But
I have a pretty heavy take on this one, and I also have a great way to play this one. So if you think Cody Brundage wins this fight, let's start here. Do you think he actually wins a solid 3 rounds against Malkoun?
No,
probably not, right? He's going to win in under probably 2 rounds.
Yeah.
He's going to knock him out likely. Even though Cody Brundage is a wrestler, He has some power in his hand. He's shown that he can knock people out. So I think that's where he gets him. Would you agree?
I agree.
So the under right now is lined right up with Malkoun inside the distance pretty well. At least it was yesterday. So Malkoun was like plus 115 inside the distance, and the under is actually plus 110, under 2.5. If you want to double check that for me.
No, I believe you. That seems about right. And it seems like a little bit of value considering the last time that Cody Brundage fought. Granted, it's always two people that are accounted for these unders, but fought Cedric Dumas, and that was probably one of the chalkiest unders of the whole entire card. It was set at 1.5 under minus 200, and it ended up going 15 minutes.
Now, I'm heavy on, like, if you go from breakdown on this one, I'm heavy on Malkoun. He's possibly one of the craftiest chain wrestlers that are out there.
And him minus.
The thing about Jacob Malkoun, he does have a little bit of pop in his punches. He can force that pressure through, but really he wants to get to your hips. He wants to get to the cage. He's not really a guy that's going to shoot and try to get you out in open field. He wants to get you up against that cage. Crafty chain wrestler. He's landing about 7.46 takedowns per fight, right? And although Cody Brundage is a wrestler, he doesn't hold, like, he always sort of accepts that position. Whether it's when a guy goes to punch him, he'll jump and grab a guillotine at points. Like, this has been done multiple times, right? And we've seen this multiple times. The fight IQ is not there. He makes poor decisions on the cage. In his defensive wrestling, he makes poor decisions at open range striking. And when he's supposed to do the one thing, I mean, his coach is literally an audio clip of him saying, like, do you want to be here? Basically, I think it was something along those lines. It's like, I don't really know how you could. I backed him last fight because I've seen the pop in his hand. I've seen that he has the wrestling ability and he has the power in his hands, but it's just time and time again, he just seems to want to make the wrong decision. And then you go against a guy who has such high level chain wrestling, and that's what you really got to look at with him. I just think Malkoun's deciding this one, and I think that Malkoun potentially could finish this one, but I could see this at distance. He's a distance guy, but he has finished guys inside the distance as well too. So I think if you hit the under 2.5, you cover both guys, and then you play Malkoun, third round decision. Because I really strongly think Malkoun wins, and I think you cover your basis on that. I don't know if I'm over double dipping. You might want to tell me on that, but I just think that it could go to decision. I think Malkoun could definitely win a decision. I don't see Brundage doing it. The third round decision if there's value, and then the under at under 2.5 at plus 110.
I could see the decision, but the way Cody Brundage has gone about these last like
banger bust
fights, it's really banger bust, especially coming off that last one. You're such a big favorite. You know your job's on the line. I think he's going to try to come banger bust because if he gets cut, he'll just be recycled into a different promotion and get paid the same exact amount of money. So he probably doesn't give a fuck. Life is on the line right now. You got to do something to capture the fans. You're in the apex. I mean, if anything, that's a step back in his career right now. So
he either capitalizes or makes a big mistake and the under cashes. So you would say maybe if somebody is on the Malkoun side, maybe go heavy. If you want to play these two bets, you go heavy on the under or heavier on the under if that's how you want to play it. Maybe a little sprinkle on Malkoun, third round decision to cover your bases if you're on the Malkoun side. If you don't have a dog in the race, take the under.
I think you get even greasier. Shouts to my man Liam Picks Fights. Fight ends in submission here, man. I could definitely see this.
I was already looking at that too. That's where I ended up on the third round decision because I looked at Jacob Malkoun, third round submission. So I think if he takes him down 3 or 4 times, the poor fight IQ from Cody Brundage, I think he gets a guillotine pulled on him and he doesn't get out of it, or something along those lines. Where you see Malkoun up against the cage, Malkoun's got him in a guillotine and he's pressing him up against the cage and almost standing. I could fucking see it all day long.
See it now, bro. Cody Brundage pulling guillotine, him pulling guillotine. He ends up on his bottom and dude's on top, punching him out, Malkoun, and he ends up ground and pound knockout from Cody Brundage doing dumb shit as usual. Like there's nothing.
And he will go TKO too. And that was like, I was battling with this back and forth. And that's why I think I went conservative, ended up on the under with that third round decision sort of set up because I started at, we'll call it on the spectrum. I started at Die Hard level where I was going like all submission third round. I ended up maybe at the Liam Picks Fights where I went a little bit more conservative or something where it's a little bit more of a safer play. So, but yeah, I just think that this fight, I wanted to find a way to Malkoun because I just trust his wrestling, and that's something he goes to. He's consistent with it, so I just think that's a good play. I'll let you bring your next spot to the table.
Now you got me thinking about that last fight because that last fight is definitely one that we always talk about price tags on fights, but particular fight price tags are just you have to research the fight because you're going to find value. But next fight here that I'm going to talk about here is I'm feeling like it's the Twitter mush of the week, man. Did we not see Daniel Argueta in his last fight Ronnie Lawrence? I don't give a fuck if Ronnie Lawrence had fucking whatever he had going on in his personal life. Motherfucker got ran through like a fucking hot knife through butter. Miles Johns, a grappler. Is Miles John going to out grapple Dan Argueta? Fuck no. So how does he win this fight? Through volume, through 15 minutes? That's what we're doing now to back underdogs, is hoping for volume for 15 minutes over the.
From where? Where are we getting the volume from if we look at stats? What is Miles John's volume?
This seems like a slam dunk Dan Argueta spot. Minus 200. Coming down in some places. I'm going to have to wait because I'm seeing minus 160s across the board. People are going to the betting window and backing Miles Johns. I don't get why. I think Dan Argueta is primed to take that next leap in his career.
Yeah, I don't see why the love is coming in on Miles Johns in that. I think that maybe it is searching for a dog, but I don't know, man. I mean, everybody does that, right? You scan the card and you look at what's the most reasonable dog. I think that's honestly like one of your first instincts to do. You're going to look for that position. I just didn't see it. I found more of a side for Dan Argueta. I think his southpaw plays a little bit of a difficulty for Miles Johns. I just don't see. Like he doesn't volume. He lands 3.36 strikes per minute, and I think he's just going to get taken down multiple times in the fight. If it goes to the decision, maybe close on the feet, but yeah, I just think it's going to be mostly contested on the cage in a grappling matchup, searching for over-unders and fighting for positions, a little bit of chain wrestling, get backups mixed with a little bit of volume. I don't know, man. I just don't see. I'm with you on the Argueta side. I don't see. Sometimes I didn't realize that. I guess because I'm not on Twitter enough, and I damn well need to get going on that. Miles Johns, I didn't see that he was the darling of the week. I thought you were actually going the other side, that they were saying Argueta was.
No, man.
Mine
is coming down to minus 160 in some places. People are going to the betting window and confidently backing Miles Johns in the early going of this week, man. Pretty astonishing to me. When I ran the film for this fight, it made me feel like Dan Argueta. It's just consistency with him. If we get the guy that showed up against Ronnie Lawrence, he's smoking him, probably inside the distance. We get the guy that was on the Ultimate Fighter, this is split decision written all over it. So it's like, which Dan Argueta are we getting? Has he really turned that next step in his career? Because a lot of these, so in the fight game, you have particular skills. Then you get to a gym. Then you get to round out your skills. Then you round out your skills against lower level opponents. Then you get that raise of an opponent. But it's that contender series, first couple fights of your UFC contract, depending on how you got there. That's the fight that really takes you to the next level of like, all right, I used to be a money fighter. Now I'm not fighting for money anymore. I'm fighting for a career, a job, stability.
Yeah. It's more real. You're at that point, it's a career. It's becoming more finite. Yeah.
When you're like Raul Rojas Jr.'s age of like 18, 19 years old, a win or a loss doesn't really matter. You're going to wake up the next day and you're still going to have money in your pocket and you're going to be still spry to go out to the gym and all that. But when you get older, in your 28s and your 30s and you have a wife, family, and kids, and you get that rent bill at the end of the month and stuff like that, and you're only fighting once or twice a year, that's when shit starts changing in your life, you know, and you get towards that certain age. That's why a lot of people say a lot of male prime fighters they don't reach their prime until the ages of 28 through 33. And that's because shit in your life changes where you really bite down on that mouthpiece and you start swinging. You hear Mike Perry talk about it. They asked Mike Perry, what's been your biggest change? It seems like you gotten the levels better. He said, I got a family. I will go home and I see my baby crying every day and stuff like that. That's what motivates me to go to the gym and stuff like that. So a lot of these fighters, once you start seeing them get into their late 20s, they really started changing the corner. Dana Argueta has all the accolades and resumes and stuff like that. Now it's just putting all those experiences together into a string of wins. So those string of wins can carry you to your next spot. Because you could be a Kevin Holland. I hate to digress, but you could be like a Kevin Holland. Just get a string of wins and a new contract, and you're set for life. No, you don't have to fight for a title to be solidified.
Why didn't he shoot a takedown, man? Why didn't he even try to
Kevin
mix up
Holland
the
never
takedown?
fought a fight and shot a takedown.
Look, I know you were on the JDM side, and I actually was sort of I was pretty much on the JDM side with Nick and whatever else. I think we even had like a parlay with it, whatever it was. But I went like just a sub prop Kevin Holland. Why can't that man just do what he's supposed to do? I know he gets shoes regardless, but why can't he do what he's supposed to do? He's so much more talented than he is. Like, it's frustrating to watch. That's what I feel I can have an opinion. I think when you see somebody that puts themselves out there, but they're way more talented than they are. Like, I don't know.
You know what they say in the social media game? You get a lot more views for that viral knockout over the submission.
Yeah, I get it, but he wasn't even setting it up. He was just pawing away. I mean, I get it. You know what? I can't say shit with that. With a guy like JDM coming at you throwing fucking hooks from hell.
Nah, that looked like a scripted fight.
Yeah, I don't know, man. We can say that, but sometimes it's a nullification again of like he's just trying to stay away from the big power and try to figure his way in, and then all of a sudden the bell rings and the fight's over. I've heard guys talk about that.
Your opponent. What power are you supposed to be afraid of? That's the thing that you heard all week. Oh, he's got a 10-inch reach advantage. Oh, he's got the wrestling advantage. When's Kevin Holland ever used his reach advantage? And when does he ever purely started shooting takedowns, Dagestanian style?
In the middle of chaos is when he gets a submission. That's about it. And takedowns don't really come. He sort of gets on top in a weird position. So
one of those cases where I think as MMA cappers and stuff like that, we have to start acknowledging there's different categories to the ground game. You have your wrestlers, your submission artists, and the blend of two. So Kevin Holland, really good submission artist. You put him in a jiu-jitsu contest, that motherfucker probably going to make it to the semifinals. You put him in a wrestling contest, he's getting
can't mix it up.
Like,
I mean, you got to get to the ground, right? And if you can't, all those things in the middle, even the chain wrestling that I was talking about with Malkoon, if you can't mix that all together, it just doesn't sort of falls apart, right? Your game plan falls apart. And,
sometimes you see the Brazilians just say, "Fuck it, I'll pull guard."
speaking of a game plan falling apart with a grappling game plan that doesn't quite work for you, I'm gonna start with my dog of the week. So this is an early play that Nick put out last week, and I followed him right along with it because I've dug into this one intensely. Dan Ige plus 175 against Bryce Mitchell minus 210. So this is a tale of two breakdowns for me. I get why the line is moving in a direction now and digging into the numbers of takedowns. And this is what people are looking at. The sort of elephant in the room is Ige's takedown defense is 56%. Bryce Mitchell will land roughly about, he got what, 4 takedowns against Barbosa. He got 7 against Fili. So, I mean, he's going to shoot high volume takedowns. But there's a couple of things that are sort of weighing on me with this one. With this fight, we have Ige who will punish you with everything he throws, right? So I'll start off with Bryce and then I'll get to Ige. So Bryce Mitchell, minus 210, high-level grappler, low-volume striking though. Always consistent with looking for the takedown. It's one of the biggest things for him. He's consistent with it. He sets it up, and he's going to constantly shoot it. But 5 of his 6 wins come by the distance. Here's where my problem comes in. Although this is screaming, a Bryce Mitchell decision, and 5 of his 6 UFC wins come at the distance. He wins by decision. So Bryce Mitchell is pretty much a decision guy at this point. He doesn't really ever end up doing anything with his takedowns. He does ride some control, but he's relentless with the takedown, but where do we go with it? It doesn't really end up anywhere. He doesn't really end up submitting too many guys, at least at this level. And that's where I started looking at things. I stopped looking at regional stuff as much in the full scope of their fighting. I want to see lately, and I want to see at this level and what's gone on. And he's just more of a decision guy, which tells me that Ige is going to have more time to do one of the 2 things he does really well. Put that hammer that he has on his hand to your chin and knock you out, and or win moments. And this is a big thing in fights that I'm starting to trend this way away from grapplers. grapplers are the guys that I've sort of backed before. And if Mitchell was on a momentum, I might be looking at it. But he's not. And he looked absolutely terrible. And I don't care about his excuse of being sick in the last fight against Topuria. I think that he got hit a couple times and didn't want to be in there. And if your head's not fully in the game, I can't imagine it's going to be in there in the cage once you get hit by a murderer. And Topuria and Ige, both hands are fucking dynamite, right? So we have now a situation where I know that a while, it's now years ago, Movsvar took him down 9 times, right? So if that's a rinse and repeat 9-time takedown, I don't see that happening at this point. It's been a distance of time in a Nixick camp. He's not giving as many openings, and he showed it against Jackson, right? So he knocks out Jackson in that first round. We thought Jackson was going to be able to get to him, and basically he knocks him out. So that's one example of one route he can go to. And now he's not giving, it's that thing of footwork. He's not giving as many openings. So even if I think Mitchell had taken him down twice in the fight, I think he's going to get tagged up. And I think that Dan either could win a decision based on a volume on the feet where he lands and just mucks up his face, and or gets him out of there late. Bryce didn't look good in his last fight. He looked like, against Topuria, he just looked like he didn't want to be in MMA anymore. And I don't want to take too much into what he's doing online, because I don't know what he's doing exactly as far as training. I can't see it. Maybe he's hiding it. But, man, this guy seems distracted. You know, like, and his thoughts are all over the place. He's worried about fucking flat earth, and then worried about his religion, and then worried about making cedar gun boxes, and then worried about his fruit trees and his ex-girlfriend and going to her house and all this crazy shit that's going on. And then you got a killer in Dan Ige that's in a winning camp with Sean Strickland, and a coach in Eric Nixick, who's a fucking just in the corner. He's just now becoming one of the best orchestrators that he knows what to say. He knows his fighters. I just like Dan Ige at the plus money. And now, if this was more of a pick'em, I'd be like, fuck, Bryce Mitchell, although he has sort of looked like shit and maybe he's not in it, could come in and grapple him. And I don't know. And at a pick'em, I'd be like, well, whatever. But if you're going to give me like over plus 150, again, it's sort of this marker for me. But now we got plus 175, and it might even go wider. I'm on Dan Ige, man. I think that he just has that dog in him. He's shown that, you know, he can work away around the grappling at times and land. I just think it's a dog or pass. What's your take on this one? I just think that 4 of 9 wins at the UFC level for Dan Ige inside the distance, and then 5 of 6 by the distance at a decision for Bryce Mitchell. I just leave openings for a dog. It leaves openings for opportunity. And for me, I'm on the dog. Nick's on the dog. What say you, sir?
These are one of those fights, man. I hate to break out the categories, but is the fight of, are you bucketing? Are we picking winners? Are we finding value? Or am I betting what I think is going to happen? What I mean by saying that is, if we're picking winners in like a contest or something like that, you would probably pick Bryce Mitchell. If you're trying to find value, Dan Ige by decision at plus 450 doesn't seem numerically correct if he wins the fight. And his knockout props plus 430. However way Dan Ige wins the fight, it's probably by knockout or decision. Just off of a lone 430, 450, those price tags just don't seem correct in the way I would line it. And then that would be the second category. Then the third category is like, what do I think is going to happen? This shit probably hits the judges' scorecards. Fight to go to distance is minus 200, damn near, minus 195 on FanDuel, minus 200. That's about the cap of what I would pay for a straight bet. It's minus 200, 250 if it's a lock. So this could be one of those ones where you see on my Instagram, we gave out fight that goes the distance, but we're on the UFC live stream of Pub Sports Radio, and we're up some money on the night, and it's the co-main event. I'm throwing money down on Dan Ige by decision at plus 450, bro. It's wild.
Yeah, I get, and it's mostly that line's like, you know, sort of chalked that way because of Bryce Mitchell, because of his ability to sort of smother guys out. It's just, he didn't look good against a guy who was able to sort of land big shots on him. And I just don't know, like Barbosa is more of a, he sets up his shots and he lands some big ones, but he sets them up and they're sort of from a distance, and that's how he plays it. That wasn't what Topuria is. He's got some tight hooks. He'll hammer you down when you try to take him down. He's going to be vicious with his approach. And so will Ige. And I just think there's a lot of value. There's a lot of momentum in the camp. And I see multiple paths. Although I do see a clear decision path for Bryce, I just see that there's a lot of value in the dog. And if you were to see these guys fight 10 times, Sure, Bryce could get the better of him and take him down multiple times and win decisions, but I just see that Ige at a high clip could, win moments and or get him out of there.
I feel like this is like the transition into like the podcast like era of like talking about like the gambling perspectives versus the fight. Because I feel like from a gambling perspective, if you allocated 1.5 units just alone on this fight and you put, let's say, whatever minus 200 is, a half unit brings back a quarter of a unit. So you spend half of your unit on making a quarter of a unit on fight that goes the distance. Then you spend another quarter of a unit on just a straight up money line to Dan Ige, just in case random shit happens or the fight gets voided and you get your money back. Then you also put a quarter of a unit on Dan Ige decision no bet at minus 142. I don't think Bryce Mitchell finishes him. And if he loses the fight, it's probably a decision. So then you get your money back there at minus 140. And that's what the odds makers are telling you, that Dan Ige is the more dangerous fighter between these two. And you also get a little bit of upside with your last quarter of a unit by playing one of the method of victory props, either KO or decision, because off of alone, you cash 2 out of 4 of those bets. You're going to be up money off that 1.5 units that you allocated, because if the fight goes to the judges' scorecards straight alone, then you already have that in your pocket, and that basically pays back the money that you spent on the other bets. Then if you go the other route and let's say Dan Ige finishes the fight, now you're clean sweeping the whole entire shit besides the fight goes a distance. And at that point, if you're cashing a plus 450, who gives a fuck about everything else? Like, or a 430, which is the KO prop, that's how I think he gets it done. Or if you want to be safe and go inside a distance. I think there's a lot of ways to attack this from a betting perspective. And I feel like there's more monies to be made by betting on Dan Ige and betting with the bookies, because there's no way the bookies don't not need Ige to win. People are going to parlay Bryce Mitchell. You already got the early sharp action of people grabbing the line. The line goes up to minus 210. Now you see the line at 210. Now we start getting into the later weeks where people are parlaying it with college football. Bellator is going to be on that Saturday as well, the same exact morning. So a 250, a 200 price tag, you got to think about it like a 200 price tag, and we got 18 fights on Bellator, followed up by another 11 on UFC. A 210 price tag's a pick 'em.
Yeah, I definitely need to start looking at things, dissecting fights a lot more that way, because when you see at multiple ways that you could sort of find a finite edge to this, then you can start looking at different ways to actually gamble on it. But the one landmine on the card that we will tell everybody to stay off, where I won't run my Canadian bias or my perception of what you guys think is Canadian bias. God damn it. There is an edge for each fighter every which way in the Ricardo Ramos and Charles Jourdain fight. Submissions, knockouts, decisions, always. It's going to be potentially the only way you bet on this fight is if it's going to be fight of the night. Do not touch this fight with anything, because if anybody honestly can tell me who they think is going to win this fight definitively and what way they're going to do it, I got nothing for you. Ramos just
for you on
a
that
killer, and so is Jourdain. It's just going to be a fan fight for me, unless you think you have an edge on it. But man, I don't know how.
Fan fight for me from a betting perspective, which is a whack ass answer, because I always feel like when people say dog or pass, are you actually really putting money down on the dog? Because if not, then you can't say dog or pass. But
yeah, that's.
I got to say dog or pass. Like, if you gave me a free bet and the free bet was only be able to use in this fight, man, I don't know how I would use that free bet. So I guess it would be dog or pass, because up money on Charles Air Jourdain right now. And I don't think I need to break even by betting this fight potentially, because we've had a good run of recent matchups for him. The only one I really faded him on was that New York card with Shane Burgos, and I honestly thought you could make a case if that shit was in Vegas, he probably won the fight. So Jourdain has good momentum going with him. The one thing that I do like about Charles Jourdain, particularly in this fight, in backing him as a pick perspective, is the fact that his last fight against Kron Gracie, granted, the fight played out way different than what he probably trained for, but dude had to be training for his grappling at a very high level. And when that fight ended, he just went back in the training room and continued the same exact wrestling drills, whatever the fuck they do in the room. This training camp and the last training camp have to be damn near fucking identical, to the point where maybe you start seeing strides in his grappling game, because there's flashes and moments in it, but it doesn't all come together for 15 minutes. It's maybe just enough to get up, or just enough to throw up a submission off of your back to get out the round or something like that. So maybe we might see a level of Jourdain that we haven't seen before. I think when fighters are fighting the same exact style of fighters, or doing the same exact stuff throughout a camp, and it's something that they usually don't do, you start seeing their levels get better versus them fight a grappler. Like you see this with Aljamain Sterling, fought a pure grappler one camp. 3-4 months later, he fights a pure striker the next camp. You can't emulate every type of style of fighting in such a short amount of time period. It takes years and stuff like that to develop and learn. And while it takes years and stuff to develop and learn, especially on the ground, I think the ground accolades are enough to really set you apart.
Most definitely. And just to add a wrinkle to what you were saying, so he's actually, I'm not sure his belt right now, but he's been a pretty well-rounded fighter for a long time. Just hasn't had it, to really shown the BJJ that he does have. He's under Fabio Holanda, who is, a high level and very well respected in the jiu-jitsu community as far as one of the masters of jiu-jitsu. So, okay, so we will go to pretty much at the end. The one other thing I would say is I wish that Mizuki was a better line, because I think Hannah Goldie is done. But then the size thing, that sort of scares me in that a little bit. But I mean, I still think she's going to get picked apart. I think Hannah Goldie is pretty much.
I'm gonna roll with dog or pass, and I actually would put money down on Hannah Goldie to beat.
I just think like she doesn't want to be in there anymore too. When I see that in someone, it's like she just
Hannah Goldie. I think we're gonna. The one thing that you can say about Hannah Goldie that is transferable throughout her fights is more times than not, she's going to be the more physically stout fighter than her opponent. And in the women's MMA division, that goes a long way, in my opinion. I
thought Goldie had bigger reach. My bad.
Yeah, no, Goldie's shown that she cares about her career. She's done the right sense of things to change camp. She's over there at Fusion XL. Are we going to see the best version of Hannah Goldie? I think so. I think she's going to give her a run for her money, and the fight isn't a complete squash match. Hannah Goldie's been doing her thing this summer. She's been over at Extreme Couture, Fusion XL. She's getting the right looks in. She's with the right people. Does the UFC reward her for taking fights like Molly McCann over in England when she knows she's going to get smoked? Maybe so. This isn't the worst matchup for her. Every fighter signs the dotted line with the hopes of seeing a title fight maybe at the end of their career. And if you look at Hannah Goldie's record, she ain't due for no title shot anytime soon. So you better be a prize fighter. Hashtag 24K Hannah Goldie. I think she might see 50 if she sees a finish this weekend. So I'm riding with my girl Hannah Goldie, and I do like blondes. So take that picture.
I mean, the reason people are worried, he likes blondes. Yeah, OnlyFans. Amanda Lemos beat her in 2020, which was Mizuki Inoue's last time she fought. I think that's the biggest thing people are worried about, and where people are unsure how long that is. If that's going to hinder her or help her.
Cardio thing for me now. Like
there's a 4-inch reach advantage. I thought that Hannah Goldie was bigger. She's not. She is going to be physically stout fighter, but she's a lot more muscular. And if we get into some grappling exchanges, she could pull something out. But
cardio.
And it's just on the feet, man. I just think she's going to get, if it stays on the feet, even at range for a little while, and she gets lulled into that, she's going to get picked apart.
Where I see
at the same time, I know the line's wide.
Halfway through the second round, third round, girl hasn't fought in about 3 years. Her cardio isn't going to be at tip-notch shape versus the blown-up muscles. I'll tell you the one thing that Hannah Goldie's doing in the fucking training room, the bitch is running on a treadmill. She's getting those cardio in. Like, her thighs and her arms will show you that the physical fitness part of the training sessions, she's doing that in spectacular form. So if Hannah Goldie's going to be an active body for 50 minutes, she's a live dog, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I don't hate the dog shot, especially at the line where it's at, and the time off. There's a question there, so give me enough wrinkles to throw in there to actually want to shoot money at the dog, and I will. But for me, I think we've hit pretty much every spot. Unless there's any other spots that you wanted to talk about, we sort of touched on all of our plays. If you have anything for Bellator that you wanted to highlight, take it away.
One last UFC fight that we got to talk about because this is the people's, I would say Twitter, or not Twitter anymore. The X main event is Brian Battle versus AJ Fletcher. What are your opinions on this one? Because this one's a heart toucher for me. AJ Fletcher is one of my guys that I put my flag on in the Contender Series a couple years ago versus Brian Battle, a dude that literally just signed to the company I just left over at the Sharps app. So you know what they say, man. The grass is greener on the other side. And fuck, man. They found the grass is greener on the other side.
Yeah, it's going to be a line thing for me. Again, I'm on value on this one only because AJ Fletcher's got that dog in him. And he has that wrestling ability, and he mixes in that tight boxing, some dirty box up against the cage pretty well. Can win some moments. But Battle's just got that long rangey. He's very precise with his shots. You know, he doesn't waste too much, and he lands at high, like not a high volley, it's high efficiency, right? And that's hard to beat. It really, really is. So it's a tough one, man. I stayed off that one. That one's a little bit of a landmine for me because I think I could be on either side of it and feel confident to some degree with some, some angles, but still wind up on the other side of it come fight night. It's one of those fights, man. So yeah, I think it's gonna be a great fight to watch. But
last week was a little bit of a weird dichotomy because it was given to us as a fight night, but in reality felt like it was more of a pay-per-view makeup for the Australian card. Because if you break it down like fight by fight, that fight card in T-Mobile Arena was more star-studded than the one that they made us pay for. So it's like, is this more of like everybody's got to chill and relax this week? Usually if you put 2 units on a parlay, maybe put 1 unit on a parlay. Or if you slam a half unit on a prop, maybe just go a quarter unit on a prop. This feels like more of a chill week. But that Bellator card, man, as much as I say it's a chill week, man, that Bellator card that starts at 11 o'clock, there is some great lines on those fights, man. A couple of lines that I'm looking at: Kasan Magomed Sharipov, which is Zabit's cousin, or not cousin, little brother. Man, he's only 650. The dude that he's fighting is not the same level as him. Kasan should be minus damn near 2,000. You got Darrell Kelly, one of Ireland's finest prospects. Kieran
minus 1,500.
1,500 minus 950. There's a lot of chalk lines, but as you really start breaking it down, if they're giving you over 35 fights to pick between, if you can get 4 right, you're getting paid this weekend. Like usually I do a little 2-leg parlay of the UFC card of something like that, but this week might be different if you grab something off of me. It might be 1 Bellator, 1 UFC, and 1 UFC is probably going to be Marita Rodriguez. I think that's the way to go about it from a betting perspective. Whatever you like on the UFC card, anchor it with the Bellator card. There's some, I shouldn't say free winners, but it's a card in Ireland that they're trying to promote particular people. It's pretty clear who's going to win certain fights and who's not. And if you can get a couple of W's to go across the board and hit it maybe with a Malkoun as your last parlay piece of a 3-leg parlay, or Rodriguez is the last leg of your 3-leg parlay, man, you're rolling on for the weekend. Now, if you got a couple NFL lines and that's a 5-leg, now you're putting in return where it's like, all right, maybe I'm not betting those plus 450 props because I got 3 different parlays rolling off for tomorrow. I don't really need to get any action. So there's ways to go about it this week. A lot of action, a lot different than the weeks prior in the past, because definitely has to be noted, man. You can make money at this time of year. There's a lot of different ways to parlay stuff up right now. There's just too many options on the board. And with that being said, with there being so many options on the board, sometimes that allows fight fans to get free W's, as we like to call it in the betting community, because the books give a fuck about Colorado versus Oregon right now on Saturday at 10 o'clock at night. They don't give a fuck about your minus 300 parlay piece that is probably going to smoke this dude. Like, you see people being like, oh, I don't know about Charlie Campbell, minus 490, blah, blah, blah. They don't give a fuck about that line right now because you got other games and other shit going on with people that are the biggest attraction for any sports book, especially in America, and that translates off to the other markets, is going to be football, college football, NFL football. That allows us MMA fans to kind of just squeak in by the little back of the end of the book and be like, hey, don't forget about me. Don't close that window up. I got a ticket right here from the UFC card. And they're like, fuck this guy. And then they look at the ticket and they're like, oh, shit. Maybe we should care about the UFC fights a little bit more. I want to be that guy because there's just edges right now to be had in the markets for UFC because the books care about all the different other sports right now that aren't named UFC. Like, for example, this Saturday, granted, I don't think the WNBA is going to draw more wagers than the UFC, but it is the WNBA playoff semifinals game. The Aces, like, we're getting into the WNBA. That's how you know it's a long version of this podcast. But that's what I mean, man. Like, those Jacob Malkoon lines, they might just let us sneak through with a little 3-leg parlay, 2 legs from the UFC, 1 from Bellator, or a Bellator 2-leg and a UFC. Like, those are the bets that are going through the window as W's right now, not the minus 20.5 spread on Wisconsin football or some shit like that. Those are the losing tickets, and those are the tickets that the books are attracting right now. So it's a great time of year. You see a lot of these recent cards, a lot more favorites have been winning than dogs. If you're more of a value guy, you might want to venture off into your buddies of the Parlay Boys.
I would actually, I'm looking at the Bellator card. I actually like Johnny Eblen by decision.
There's a lot of different lines on that Bellator card that you just once you research.
I'm eyeing it up right now. You're talking and I'm listening to everything you're saying, but you like sort of, I haven't really delved into it. I'm like, wait a minute, I could see there's some dogs. There's a couple lines here I like. Some
lines, dude.
Yeah, it's a decent card. It looks like a decent betting card. So something I may want to jump in and maybe make like a 2-piece parlay or 3-piece parlay and then add a dog shot. I think I may put up that likely by tomorrow.
And it's
the one thing I want to say is shout out to Jasmine Jasudavicius. The girl took a shot in the first round, orbital bone broken. I hope this isn't like, I believe this is news at this point. So like, to me, it's a closely contested fight. Tracy Cortez did win the fight. But man, for her to push through those 2 rounds and do what she, like, if you watch the fight back, I did after I found that out. What a beast she is. Like,
Jasmine did a great
100, like I not taking anything away from Tracy Cortez, her striking looked fucking 10 times better than it has in the past. Her hooks looked just not like you didn't want to enter the pocket, and Jasmine did, which was nuts as well too. But even knowing what happened early in the fight, that is absolutely crazy, and it was no excuse. She didn't make excuse of it. She went through and fought all the way to the end of the fight. Thought she had even had a shot at getting her hand raised at the end, and regardless, good showing by both women, and what a hell of a fight that was on Saturday night.
Two takeaways from that fight: Jasmine Jasudavicius will fight for your fucking money. If 100%. You ever bet on her, you will not be disappointed by the performance. And the second one is she's got that dog in her, man. A lot of other people would have quit and found their exit throughout their door and wrapped it up and said the odds are stacked up against me. I already got paid. But now she bit down on that mouthpiece and gave Tracy Cortez a good run of herself, and it was a 1-1 fight going into the 3rd round.
And the one thing I said going into that fight was I thought that Jazz was the one that had leveled up more, but I got to say, as far as what Tracy's done as well too, she's leveled her game up, whether it was going to Brazil and doing that or whatever it was. The striking was definitely 10 times better than I've seen in the past. So great performance by both women. Hats off to both women.
Canada a little bit. Canadian wrestling is nowhere close to levels of American wrestling.
Well, yeah, on that 100% as far as the Olympic level or whatever it is, but I mean, fighter to fighter or individual to individual, room to room.
Individual to individual. If you're in the epicenter of Las Vegas in those grappling rooms compared to...
Oh, yeah, for sure. 100%.
Yeah.
Can't argue with that. But I think those two, I don't think the wrestling was even a conversation in that fight anyways. And I just don't think it still would have played. I think that would have been a mistake by Cortez if she went that route. And I think it ended up playing out well the way that she ended up fighting.
Biggest mistake of the fight was not pursuing the takedowns early, because when she started pursuing the takedowns, both fighters were tired. Jasmine's going to chuck you right off at that point. But if you try to shoot in the beginning of the fight, yeah, and both people are not tired, like, shit, maybe technique might be able to beat out skill. But, like, I don't know. I just felt like the way Tracy Cortez went about the fight was kind of stupid, but she gave the fans a pretty entertaining fight. Both of the girls did. And last week was a convincing factor that women's MMA does need to be on these cards, man, because the one thing that missed out on that pay-per-view was the women's MMA fights, man. It was like the women MMA fights were substituted for like low-level male fights that just were really dog shit.
And to finish on the main event, I don't want to say too much on it because we could talk, I'm sure, at length about that. That 10-8 right at the end felt like that meme that's going around right now, the football play, where they're down by 10. This is a Vegas call right now. Why are they kicking a field goal? Why are they rushing to kick a field goal right now? Why are they not just going for the end zone? Look for that meme.
2 calls
to cover the spread, to cover that spread.
Now, Vegas made 2 calls last week, and the 2 calls.
You know what I'm talking about, right? Have you seen that meme?
Yeah,
They're
yeah.
like, look at the referees rushing to get this to the line right now. They're already down by 10. There's no way to win this game. Why are they rushing this ball right now? And then he kicks the field goal. What did we just watch? And it's like, that's what that 10-8 felt like by Mike Bell. It was almost like he almost got a glance at the other judges' scorecards as they were going by. And he was like, oh, fuck, what do I do here? Oh, I got this. Yeah, okay, yep, 10-8. Because if you were to go Grasso, it'd be the second round, as everybody says, with the knockdown. And even that's arguable if that would be a 10-8. And I'm not on that side. I was on the Grasso side of it. But I think Shevchenko won the fight. But man, what a boxing fucking moment for MMA.
It was a boxing moment for MMA, but that's also a theory of Vegas
NBA rep for MMA.
Graded Kyle Nelson, great showing of yourself, but that had to be one of the calls. Like, yo, we can't let every favorite on this card win. If one of these shits go to the scorecards and it's close, give it to the dog. We're robbing the dude on Mexican Independence Day. Like, you would think that
was not a robbery, bro.
Not a robbery, but what I'm saying is,
no. Like, I'll be honest with you, and I went to nauseum on this one. That one, if you scored it for Padilla, I think, in my opinion, based on the numbers, if you look at it, is maybe at best you would say a misstep on the judges, right? That's how I'm looking at it. Because if you look at the numbers on it, and if you look at when the damage was scored, it was only in the first round for Padilla. You got to watch it back. I watch it back ad nauseum now too. So that first round is where Padilla gets the damage. So he wins that first round, I think, easily. So I think it's not I think they gave all 3 rounds to Kyle, which is crazy. I think he won 2 of the 3. But to say it's a robbery when you have the stats actually showing you that he landed more in the last 2 rounds. What's that? No, that's what I'm saying. It wasn't that. That's why I'm saying he won the first round. So Padilla wins the first round, it's a 29-28, right? So what I'm saying is that's the way it should have been scored. That's where – oh, is that what you're saying? That's for the – oh, okay. Now I see what you're saying. The outcome was there, but the call to get the – okay, I'm with you now. Sorry, I have a lot of cappers now that are screaming robbery, and as much as that, you know, that word can make sense for the main event based on how that last card was put in play. Man, that word needs to be stopped to be used. It's just like everybody, you know, if you're on the side, you watch the fight the first time, whether you're doing a live stream, watching it, whether you're watching it at home, that first time you watch it, there's a bias to it. There's a level of bias to it, no matter what you do, because you're on the one side of it. You got to go back and watch it before you start making big claims, especially if it's a close fight. And especially if you don't know, like there's some guys that are out there talking about like striking exchanges and don't understand what a short elbow is inside because they didn't even see it. They didn't even look up at the screen when it happened. A short elbow is damage, you know, and multiple ones were landed in that fight. There's so many little intricacies to striking that may not look great and amazing on a poster, but it's damage. And if it's scored by the right judge, give me all day. But yeah, you're right. That 30-27, not okay.
One of the things to add on about the taping of fights is one of the biggest indicators for me taping a fight. Obviously, I already know what's going to happen when I'm watching the tape. So it's like, how do you make this worth your time? What were your feelings throughout that fight? What did you have a bet on the fight? Because if you had a parlay or something like that, and maybe that person was a part of your parlay or something like that, that's why it's so important to track bets and stuff. Because if you relive certain moments in the fight,
You're right.
again, it makes you not want to place that bet.
But me, I'll take the dog shot on that all day. But yeah, once again, the guy gets shit on by MMA Twitter and everybody else for nullifying the killer that everybody put -250 chalk on.
Yo,
he nullified the killer. No matter if you think he won the decision or not, he nullified him, and they're hitting on him. So fuck it.
told me was when you sent me the one where you said, "Yeah, I'm looking to kill everybody's parlays this weekend once again," and I was like, "Man, could I definitely see everybody fucking parlaying that dude up Padilla at -250?" Like, and that's exactly how it went. Exactly how we thought it would be scripted. Was I feel like we're getting a little bit more accurate with these scripts, and as these scripts are going, let's cash and make some money.
Lupita Godinez, man, I will just say, she is a monster. Thank you I backed her all the way, and thank you for doing what. Thank you, even though I didn't really like. I had her in like I was gonna make her part of the parlay, but thank you for doing what you did. That was
a lot of money on Lupi Godinez last week.
That was mad.
That was like, this is who I think you are type moment.
That was a pretty. At least Reed had nothing for her, and I knew that was going to be the play. It's just how was she going to finish it? But either way, I digress. For Billy Briz of Pub Sports Radio, I'm Callum McGregor. Tune into the Donttap podcast.